Welcome to the video for C6.1.14 Composite Materials. So before we start, you need to answer the quiz questions. So if you're watching the interactive version, they'll come up now. Right, so our learning objectives for today, we need to state what a composite material is. We need to list examples of composite materials, and we need to be able to explain the properties of composite materials. So first of all, the definition. So a composite is any material that's made of at least two other materials. So anytime you've got two different materials or more and you put them together to make a new material, then that's called a composite material. So there's two sorts really. Some consist of different layers with different properties. So for example, in that diagram, you've got four different materials, all with different properties. And when you put them together, you get a material that's got different properties to the individual components. So a good example of this is if you think of the old-fashioned Macintosh coats, they were rubber layer sandwiched between two cotton ones. So the rubber gave it its waterproof properties, so you could go out in the rain and not get wet, and the cotton meant that it was comfortable. So that because if you wore just the rubber, it would be waterproof but not comfortable, and if you wore just the cotton, it would be comfortable but not waterproof. So by putting the two together, you get a material that's better than the components. An example of a composite material that has layers that's a bit different is plywood, and that's a bit different because it's the same material just at different angles. So if you think about normal wood, it's stronger if you apply the force along the grain than against it. So if you go against the grain, it's weaker. So the way you get around this is with plywood is it's a composite made of lots of thin layers of wood, and because they're at right angles to each other, then you get the strength in both directions. The other type of composite you can have is where you've got fibres which are placed in a matrix. So the matrix is just where the fibres are kind of suspended in. So apologies for my dodgy diagram. I've been at it in Paint 3D again, and we all know I can't do drawing in real life or on the computer, so I'm sorry about the diagram, but it's supposed to show two different views. So the top one's the front view, and you can see the fibres embedded in the matrix there, and if you've got the side view, they're the fibres kind of long. So the fibres are long, thin, and they're embedded in the matrix. Right, what I want you to do, so your first task for today is you need to copy this table into your notes. Right, your second task is that on the next slide, there's a series of different materials that you can use to make your composite. So I want you to design your own imaginary composite that you would use to make either a football or a trampoline. Or if you really want, you can come up with some other use. So what you need to do is state what properties your item must have, and then describe which materials you're going to mix to make your composite material. And then lastly, explain how this mix of materials will or will not suit its use. So, for example, if your object that you chose was a bulletproof vest, then you'd say that it needed to be strong because you want it to stop the bullet, but it would also have to be comfortable because you need to wear it. It needs to be easy to wash. It needs to be lightweight because otherwise it's going to take a lot of energy to carry it around all day. And probably a dark colour for camouflage, although that probably depends about where you're going to use it. So bearing that in mind, if you look at the slide on the next slide, the materials on it, two of the ones you could mix would be iron, because it's strong, and the cotton, which makes it comfortable. And if you put those two things together, it would make it strong and comfortable to wear. Downside of that is that the jacket itself would be heavy because iron's quite a dense material. Okay, so here's the different materials that you can use to answer that question. If you want, for an extra challenge, you can think of other materials, but if you use other materials in it, you've got to explain what their properties are, rather than just lifting it from this slide. Okay, that's the lesson finished. You just need to answer the quiz questions, which, if you're watching the interactive version, will come up now. Okay, thank you for listening. See you next time.